Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You know what? I'm finally glad to have you here. I've apologized to you profusely because I've had you on the schedule several times, and life just keeps getting in the way. So hopefully there are no earthquakes, no hurricanes. My mother is in good health today, so we should be good to go. So,
well, that's excellent.
Yeah, I am thrilled to have you on here. You know, the one thing I talk about on my channel a lot, Dave, is the nuts and bolts of writing, the how to be a better writer, that sort of thing. And the one thing that you are so good at and known for is the other side of that coin, which is the marketing, the actual making of money from books, which is a novel idea, no pun intended. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Before we get started, give us a little background on you.
Sure. Well, I've never attested myself to being a great writer. Matter of fact, in high school, I once worked really hard on this paper project, and my English teacher handed it back to me, and she says, "Dave, you're going to go study physics in college, right?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Good call." Hands me back my D-. So no, I never started with this, hardcore love for writing. It's something that I've acquired over time, and like I'm sure you've said many a times, writing is a skill. You improve it. I went into becoming a nuclear engineer for the U.S. Navy. I did that for a couple of years, was on submarines. I then became a military diplomat, specializing in East Asia. I'm also fluent in Mandarin Chinese, and became a international arms dealer for the U.S. government in multiple countries, and finally came to books. So it's been a wild ride across multiple different types, and all that to really say I'm a major numbers geek mixed in with a little bit of art and negotiation.
Yeah, I love that. I knew your background because, of course, I do my research. Nuclear engineer on submarines. You were stationed, I think, in South Korea for a long time. And now, somewhere along the way, Dave, you became known as the Kindlepreneur. And you're an expert in SEO and marketing. But before we dive in, let's just go back there a minute, because you literally have spent, you were in the Navy how many years?
11 years. And I'm still in the reserves because I love the mission. So I love what we do. So, and in fact, you just got back from Korea, right? I did. I just did 2 weeks for an exercise that we had up there. And that was a lot of fun.
The toughest thing about that is I know you've got a wonderful wife and little kids. It's got to be really hard to tear away. But if your kids are like mine, going to Korea is kind of a relaxing thing, because you've got the cutest little boy I've ever seen, and you're always posting videos of him doing things.
Thank you. Well, when I was in the military, I kept getting deployed without my family. And so I have 2 girls and a boy, and 3 out of the past 4 years of my active duty days were spent away from them. So in truth, it was a good 4 or 5, 6 years. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that my wife and I had that discussion of exactly what did we want to do? What was our definition of success? And it turns out it wasn't to be an admiral. It wasn't to, go accomplish some giant mission in the military. In truth, I wanted to do something that I absolutely enjoyed from the comforts of home, and where my kids would actually get to know me and think of I'm just some stranger that comes home and visits mommy from time to time. And we looked at that, and because I was stationed on the other side of the world, I had limited options. It's not like I wanted to trade the active duty time for another, 8 to 5 job that sends me off places. And with the background that I had, believe me, it was going to end up being a job that sent me off places. So we knew right away that wasn't the case. And we started looking at what kind of things I could build online where it doesn't require me to be in America to be able to make sales. It doesn't require me to be on the phones or ready to implement, customer orders or any of that stuff. And all of that culminated under being able to create websites and ranking them in Google, so that every day, regardless of whether I came online, that I was able to make sales, affiliate clicks, advertisement clicks, and that sort of pay. But the biggest thing for me, the reason why I got into Amazon, was that after years and years of spending kind of understanding Google and why it chose one website to rank at the top over another, I had this idea of why not write books and use my niche websites to sell them, kind of like promote them. So in this case, I had people go from Google, they are searching for some kind of pain point, they find my website, and they realize, a book would be a good idea, and they click it, and they're sent to Amazon. When I started doing that, it really increased the amount of money I was making. Instead of a couple $100, it was a couple thousand, which was nice. And then at that point, I started to kind of use my analytical side, my number side, my trying to figure out how the Amazon search engine works that really helped to open up my eyes to this new market. And when I started doing research, I found out there just wasn't anybody really tackling that side of author publishing. And that's why Kindlepreneur.com was created.
What was the light bulb moment for you that when you all of a sudden went, you know what? Amazon's a search engine.
Yes.
You know,
just
everybody
like
thinks Amazon is a big bookstore. It's a search engine, right?
It really is. As a matter of fact, they even have a name for their search engine, and it's called the A9 algorithm. And this A9 algorithm is actually more important to us than Google is, because when people go to Amazon and they type something into the search bar in Amazon, they're buyers. They're on Amazon because they're ready to purchase something. So when somebody types something into Amazon and they're looking for their next book, it's not someone that you have to convince to buy.
Right.
It's that you have to convince them that your book is the right one.
Right.
That's a lot easier market, telling them, hey, this is the product you're looking for, instead of, hey, you're looking for a product and this is the one you're looking for.
I think that's a really good point. By the time they get to Amazon, they're shoppers.
Exactly.
They're not just perusing the web looking at cute kitty cat videos. They are there looking to buy something. And the hard part, Dave, as you well know, is getting them to notice you and buy your stuff.
Right.
And I think that's part of the SEO side of things, right?
Absolutely. The same thing goes with Google. You know, I don't build a website because I just kind of sit down and say that would be kind of cool.
Right.
Instead, what I do is I go through Google and I find out what things people are typing into Google, right? How many people per month type this exact phrase in? Then after that, I say, okay, is there any website out there that's really providing the content these people are looking for? And if the answer is no, then awesome. And finally, if there is competition, can I do a better job? And when I have all those answers, I can sit down and create a website that will provide for people, that will make Google happy, and have Google send it right to the top, so that every month my website is getting the same, about the same amount of people every month. And that same amount of people, there's a certain percentage that click on things and buy things. So what that is, right, at that point is passive long-term income. And the same exact thing, the same exact principle can be applied to books. If you know that a certain amount of people are typing something into Amazon, and you can write a book that addresses what they're looking for, and there are no better books out there on it, then congratulations. Every month there are people typing that in. Every month a certain percentage will find your book, and every month you'll make a certain percentage of sales. And when you've done that, you can create book assets, and I call them assets for that reason, because you can just continue to increase your monthly income as you build them.
Yeah. See, I think one of the differences between you and the way that a lot of people think, Dave, is you're an entrepreneur out of the gate. You know, I had my own business for 30 years. I sold it, retired. I did a lot of consulting. I did a lot of teaching of entrepreneurs. And the things that you are talking about are the exact things that I would teach in an entrepreneurial class. You know, I market research, you know, identifying the competition, improving the product creation. I think that's the key there, is you approach all of that as an entrepreneur, and you saw the books as your product and not necessarily your art or your babies. I mean, I know a lot of broke writers, you know, who never figured that out, right?
Well, every facet of business does this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because it's like a new concept for us writers. I mean, even like In-N-Out Burger, which is one of the best burger places ever.
I know you were posting pictures on Facebook of your In-N-Out Burger.
I love In-N-Out. But okay, but even they know that they have a great product and people love it. But they don't just willy-nilly choose where they're going to set up their shop. You know, they'll do their research, say, hey, you know, this is a good city that's got opportunity. Sort of think of that like that's a good genre or that's a good niche. And then they start to investigate what place should they put their next storefront so that they get the most amount of traffic, literally in this case, traffic, cars driving by, where they have the least amount of competition. I mean, you don't want to put it on the strip where there's like 40, you know, fast food restaurants within, you know, a quarter of a mile. And at the same time, that it's not like they're trying to beat out an even better place, which I can't even think of a place that's better. But they do all of that research to find the most optimized place for them to place their next restaurant and to make the most money. Every business does that. And it's something that I've been trying to teach authors, that you can do this too. Now, what I'm saying is not that you have to write something you don't want to write. Okay. What I am saying is that when you have a book idea in you, you can do some key research to figure out exactly how you can tailor your book to fit the needs of existing buyers on Amazon. A great example of this is, say, for example, you've decided you wanted to write a book on Evernote. Okay. Now, Evernote is a software that helps people to organize their thoughts. And there are hundreds of books on Amazon right now for Evernote. There's a demand for it. But the thing about it is there's just way too much competition. Right. If you decide that you want to write that book, you're going to have to make it so good. I mean, the best that, it's got the best cover. It's got amazing reviews. You're a super good marketer and all that. And then maybe you'll be able to float up to the top. And if you keep that up, maybe you'll stay at the top. But here's where it works for other people, though. If you were to do your research, you would find that there's a certain amount of people per month that type in Evernote for lawyers. Same thing for Evernote for writers, Evernote for students, Evernote for project managers. These are words people use. But the funny thing is there's no book that is addressed just to them. But let me ask you this. If you're a lawyer and you type in Evernote for lawyers and only one book shows up that says Evernote for lawyers, it's the same Evernote book you were wanting to write, except that this one is just speaking to a certain group, a certain demographic, a certain pain point. Then that's the one you select. So granted, maybe there are only like 20 lawyers, a month typing that in Amazon, but that's basically 20 sales you get every month until somebody else thinks that it's worth writing a whole book on that and gives you competition. That's the kind of way that you can take your story and your idea and fit it to a pre-existing market.
You make a couple of really good points here. I want to back up a little bit because, again, you are approaching this as an entrepreneur. Rather than just saying, hey, I've got a great idea for a product and then I'm going to put my heart and my soul and my savings into this idea only to find that there's no market. You are saying, even if you are an author, before you write that book, even if it's a passion project, you need to go to Amazon, you need to get online, you need to do the research. Number one, to make sure there's even a market for it. Right. You and I are both in the software business. I've spent really good money to create software that nobody wanted. Because I didn't do what we're talking about here. But from an author standpoint, what you're saying is go validate the need or the marketplace before you spend a lot of time and money on that project.
Well, to an extent. So there's two types of authors out there, right? There's the ones who have the big website with lots of people on their email list, or they've got an incredible skill of like Facebook, ads and all these other things. And then there's the authors who don't have those things. If you're an author who doesn't have those things, you need to make sure there is a market that's waiting for your book. Most importantly, you have to do that. Because otherwise, if you're going to write a book and people aren't buying it or people aren't looking for it on Amazon, then how are you going to sell it, right? I mean, there's Amazon's not going to help you to sell it. You did your research and they're not there. So the only way that you can still write that book and succeed financially is if you go find the market somewhere else and bring them to your book. When I worked with Pat Flynn on his book, Will It Fly? Pat Flynn runs the website smartpassiveincome.com. He's got probably over 100,000 email subscribers. He's got a very popular podcast. Honestly, Pat could choose to write anything he wants. He could write a book on how to put your pants on one leg at a time, and I'd probably buy it because it's Pat Flynn, as would thousands of people. Because he knows where his market is and he can reach out to them and grab them and bring them to his book page, Pat Flynn can write anything he wants. So that's a big difference between authors. If you're at this point where you're like, I just want to write whatever I want to write, then you can't depend on Amazon to make sales for you.
Yeah.
And more importantly, if you don't have those things that we talked about with Pat Flynn, you don't have the capability to grab the right people and bring them. So this is not the field of dreams where if you write it, they will come.
Well,
so we as authors can take charge of that and proactively find out whether or not our book is going to succeed before we drop all that money, or we can start planning on having to build the website and the email or a skill like Facebook.
Yeah. And unless you're like a Pat Flynn who has a huge audience already, and you're right. I mean, there's Gary Vaynerchuk, I think, once said, I could fart in the jar and people would buy it.
Yeah, probably.
And really it is. I mean, and we talk about this a lot on this show, is if you are an author, you can always tell an author gets really successful because his name on the cover is much bigger than the title itself. But 99.999% of us, myself included, we are not there. We don't have big lists. We don't have name recognition. We don't have people breaking down our door. So we have to basically start from scratch. So let's do that. You've talked a little bit about the research and the validation. Okay, I'm thinking about writing a book on how to train my puppy. Now, we both know that competition is going to be stiff. That's a pretty big, but I'm going to write the book nonetheless because I have these revolutionary techniques. I'm going to get the book written. Once I have it finished, Dave, what should I do as far as getting that book online and getting the marketing wheels going?
Well, first off, I would start to try to figure out, like you said, how to train a puppy is probably going to be ridiculously competitive, right? Yeah. And I'm guessing that you don't have a giant website or a huge email list of people who would totally buy anything you write. So instead, what I would do is I would start doing the research and trying to figure out exactly what words people use when they're trying to figure out how to train their puppy. One way that you could do is go by demographic. So perhaps instead of just saying all puppies, maybe it's Dachshunds, maybe it's German Shepherds. How to train a German Shepherd. Granted, the word pup, if you're saying how to train a dog, it means you're usually talking about a puppy. So it goes without saying. Right. But I may just be one of those people's look, the husky is a completely different dog. How do I train one of those? They're more high strung, or a Dalmatian, more high strung, than the bloodhound or something like that. And people are very specific. So if you can do your research and you find out, man, there's 2,000 people per month typing in how to train a German Shepherd. And there's no book that addresses that. Cha-ching, you found it, right? You found a way that you can still write the book you want to. You're just addressing it to a particular niche. Another thing too is perhaps we're not talking about train your puppy. Maybe it's train your dog. There's a difference in the numbers. How many people per month type one or the other? Maybe one's a lot easier than the other because we all initially think puppy and we forget about the word dog. Or there are other pain points like how to get your dog to stop peeing on the carpet.
I need that book.
The what?
I need that book.
But if you think about it, that's a pain point, right? Well, what gets somebody to say right now, I need to figure out how to train my dog? Well, it's the fifth time in the day that the puppy craps on your loafers, right? You're coming right to Amazon. That's it. I'm taking charge. And so research like that, not only does it help you to understand if there is a market, or what people are typing, it will help you to create a better title, a better book cover. It will help you to write a better book for the market that's there. If you are the only one that addresses the whole straight up how to stop peeing on the carpet, all right, then, and that's what people are searching for, that should go into your title, right? I mean, that should be a part of it. That should if people are typing that, that's their words. That's what's coming to their mind when they're looking for a book. That should be a part of your title. The book cover should exemplify this. I mean, if you end up going after how to train your German Shepherd and you don't have a German Shepherd on the cover, that keyword's never going to work for you. People are going to be like, what? So understanding who your target market truly is going to help you to make things better. It will also help you on how you should write the book because you know who you're writing the book for. No advertiser or TV show or movie would ever create anything without knowing who their target demographic is. We as authors need to understand that as well.
Going along those lines, do you recommend that authors learn about marketing and business before they jump out there and really try to even publish a book? Because, and this is one thing, and another thing we talk about a lot on this show is writing now. If you're going to be a successful writer, you write about 10% of the time and you market about 90%. So it's really important to approach it as a business and everything. And you just outlined, everything you just said there had a business point to it. Again, the research, the competition, how to design the cover, how to tap the market. How important is it for authors, judging by what you have seen, is it for authors to learn and accept the fact that this is a business and they need to learn to treat it as such?
Well, it depends. If you're just wanting to publish that first book and that's what your goal is, then awesome, go for it. Write that book, publish it, you succeeded. But if your goal is to either get that book read by more people, to actually get it out to the right people and to heal them, to help solve their problem, then you need to understand, how do you get it to them? If your goal is to make money, stop working the 9-to-5 job, be able to be a full-time writer, be home with your kids like mine, then it's really important that you get the marketing done. Yeah. So it really depends on who you are and what your goals are. And it's very important as an author that you set those and you understand it. I also say that if you intend to publish more than one book, then you really need to approach marketing as a skill. I mean, that will be a telltale of whether you succeed. If you are looking to get a publisher deal, oh yeah, you definitely need to learn marketing. A publisher will sign you, and the first thing they're going to say to you is, great, how do you intend to sell the book? And if you don't make their required number, they'll never speak to you again. Mm-hmm. Another thing that authors are finding out too is that because of self-publishing, publishers can now, they almost want to see what your track record is. If you go up to a publisher and you've never published a book before, you're going to have a harder time than somebody who has self-published and has great numbers and good sales and lots of reviews. Right. More importantly, they're going to offer you a better deal if you have great numbers and reviews, because you've got kind of a proven track record that this looks like they're going to make more money. They might actually put more effort into your book because they know they've got something. Just recently, I'm forgetting his first name. His last name was Hardy. And he was able to create an email list of over 100,000 people because just writing on Medium. And when he was able, he'd never published a book before or anything like that. And instead, he shopped around an idea to the big 5 publishers. He ended up signing a publishing contract of over $210,000, not because his idea was so revolutionary and amazing, but because the publisher loved the fact that he had over 100,000 people who loved his writing already and signed up. Yeah. So again, to kind of answer your question, it really depends on where your goals are, where you're at. But the most important part is that if you're truly trying to make something out of this, you've got to start learning marketing. You've got to treat it like a skill. And the last thing on that too is that I say that if that's the case, then the day that you decide you want to write a book is the day you need to start marketing it. Marketing isn't just about the money. It's all, like we said, it's about understanding who you're writing for, what it is they truly want, and knowing those things from the get-go will help you to write a much better book.
You know, one of the things you say there brought a quote to mind. I had Hugh Howey on this show, and when he said something to the effect of, it's easier to get a big publishing deal after you've sold 1 million books on your own.
Yeah, well, at that point, you got to stop them from banging on your door.
Well, you've got a lot more leverage then. And of course, Hugh was smart. He retained, I think, the online rights, and he gave the paperback book rights to them. But it is easier. And you know this. Once you have built an audience and you've sold a lot of books, it just gets easier. It's getting started that's difficult for a lot of folks. You mentioned briefly self-publishing. Let's talk a little bit about our industry, because things change so quickly in the self-publishing industry. You know, one of the things I always say is, you know, one of the nice things now is it's so easy to publish a book, but one of the bad things is it's so easy to publish a book. Right. You know, talk a little bit about that. You've got Amazon now. It is the 8,000-pound gorilla, and a lot of people think that Amazon does not treat its its smaller authors very well. But then you've also got aggregates like Drafted Digital, Smashwords, of course, Pronoun just shut down. Your thoughts about what's going on in the industry?
Well, the good news and the bad news is also that Amazon loves new books, right? So they like to keep things fresh. They like to try new books. Back in the day, I mean, we're talking like 2013 or so, you could pretty much pick anything and do really well. Some of the people are truly claiming some amazing sales numbers. Like a majority of their stuff came in like 13, 14, and some of 15. It gets harder and harder. But the fact of the matter is that it's also, it helps those that are in it to do better. You can't just sit on Amazon right now, plop up a book, throw it up there and make money. That's a good thing, because over time, people are going to realize they can't win that way. Right. So the people who have said that I'm dedicated to this, I'm going to learn how to market, I'm going to, really build out something. they're the ones who are going to see and reap the benefits. So yeah, I see what you're saying, where it's a good thing, bad thing. But in truth, for us who stick with it, we're going to gain a competitive advantage, and we're going to have a much more successful time.
Do you think the best writer will win out, or the best marketer?
Well, I think you definitely have to have a combination of both, because if you really suck at writing, but you're amazing at marketing, your reviews are going to reflect it. Yeah. And the reviews are going to just kind of drag you down like an anchor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, even the best writers in the world have failed. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's look at this one case. This lady would go into a coffee shop and she would write every waking moment that she could, this book. And finally, when she got it done, she got an agent, and the agent shopped it around, and she got 18 rejections. And, you know, I was like, what gives? She kept doing it, kept getting rejected. Finally, her agent called in a favor to one guy. He says, look, dude, I'm calling my favor. You need to check this book out. The guy says, all right. Throws the book to his 13-year-old daughter and says, here's the first chapter. Let me know if you like it. Girl comes back like 15 minutes later. Is like, I want chapter 2. Where's chapter 2? And he goes, wait, what? And he looks at the cover and he's like, maybe I should check out this Harry Potter thing.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the biggest money-making, greatest story of our time. And greatest because, well, I think she's surpassed like $1 billion.
Yeah.
And how many people rejected it?
Yeah.
And why? Because poor marketing. And the truth was, a lot of it was because she was a woman. A lot of them rejected it because J.K. Rowling, that's why she went with J.K., so as to hide the gender. You know, it was just all the way it was presented. Now imagine how many great writers out there have got a phenomenal book, but a cover that does not reach their market, a cover that doesn't stick out, inability to get it in front of people so that you can kick the Kindle, you know, and start the fire going, pun someone intended on the Kindle part, and get it going. So, I mean, you definitely 100% cannot rely on it being phenomenal. Andy Weir's another great story. The dude was just writing his own books. The guy who wrote The Martian, phenomenal book, phenomenal movie. And he was too afraid to put it out there. His big break came because he was blogging about it and started gathering a whole bunch of following, and then finally put it up there.
Yeah.
You know, if he just started with putting it up, we might never have known the story of Mr. Watney.
That's a really good point, because I had Andy on this show. I'm dropping names like dirtbags here today. I'm sorry. But, you know, I asked him, I said, what was the tipping point? When did you go from, you know, just being a guy who was, you know, a nerdy science dude doing a blog to selling all these books? And he's like, I don't know. I just put it up and people started reading it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, good for you, man, for putting it up.
Well, to put it further, though, is that he was a part of a science community, you know, a sci-fi community. He was writing to that market. They were reading it as he wrote. Now, he was a phenomenal writer, and that's why it did well. But if he had just written it, not knowing who his target market was, not doing those preparations, and just published it, this is not the field of dreams. It doesn't work that way. And Andy Weir would have probably seen very poor sales, maybe questioned himself as an author, and might have quit. And now he's a multi-million-dollar author who just keeps pumping out great stuff.
Yeah, book 2 is coming out, I think, the end of next month. I've been trying to get him back on this show now, and he's like, you have to talk to my publicist. And I'm like, you know, when I interviewed you before, you didn't have a publicist. So, I want to talk a little bit more about what's going on with you, because you are, you know, you're an engineering guy, you're analytical, and at some point it occurred to you that you could create software for authors to help them do the things that they weren't doing or that they should be doing. Briefly, talk about your the software that you've created. I know you've got a number of programs out there now. Just give us a list of them and tell us how authors can use those to improve what they're doing.
Sure. Well, what's funny is that Amazon doesn't really tell us how well books are doing. I mean, they give us this Amazon bestseller rank, which is ranked from 1 to 5 million or however many books there are, with 1 being the #1 best-selling book and 5 million being the worst-selling book. But that doesn't tell us anything. What is 90,000? Is that good? Is that bad?
Right.
So the first thing that we did was we created a free calculator that will actually convert that number into the estimated books sold per day. So now authors could quickly go, they could find out how well another person's book is doing or how well the competition is doing. And you can find that just by typing into Google KDP calculator or Kindle calculator. It'll show up number one.
Okay.
But we wanted to extend that because I like to talk to people about the process on how they can figure out what people are typing into Amazon, how many people are typing it into Amazon, and all that other stuff that I said is really important in your calculation of whether or not this is a good book for the market. Mm-hmm. Well, it was a really long post, and it required Excel sheets, and it required a whole bunch of note taking, and it would take hours. And what I found out was that it was just way too hard. A lot of people were just giving up on that process, especially since they didn't find the right answer in the first, 1 hour of work, and just getting completely disheartened about it. So instead, what I did was I created a program called KDP Rocket that works on both Mac and PC, and it basically does all of that for you lickety-split. You take your idea, you type it into KDP Rocket, and it comes back and it tells you, okay, hey, this is how many books show up for that idea. This is the estimated number of people per month that type that into Amazon. This is the estimated amount of money that the top books are making for that idea. So now you know, hey, that's a good idea, or nope, that wouldn't have made me any money. Right. And finally, it gives you a competition score from 1 to 100, with 100 being Harry Potter and 1 being if you write it, they'll actually come. Right. So we were able to break it down and stop using Excel sheets, stop using hours of plugging in numbers to try to get that stuff. It just pops it right out like that. Right. And the biggest thing about it is now the software helps authors to understand what's really going on in the market. I like to call it, the hook that pulls the curtain back to let you see what's really happening in Amazon. And one thing I love is that, it's a one-time fee of $97, which means you get it for life. So as an author, you get to use it forever. Mm-hmm. And really, if it only helps to sell like 30 more books in your entire lifetime, it pays for itself. Right. But the biggest thing, though, is that not only will it help your book to be discovered, the other thing, too, is it may stop you from writing one book. You put it in there and you find out, oh, wow, there is nobody wanting this book. I better not write it. Right. I mean, look at how much money that would have saved you. Mm-hmm. The time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears on writing the thing. Then, of course, the cost for the book cover and the editor and the formatting, and then any marketing that you would have done to try to breathe life into it. That right there is hundreds of dollars. Yeah. So sadly, I tell people, hey, if it stopped you from writing one book, it paid for itself like 4 times over. Just saying. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I always tell my entrepreneurial students. If I can talk you out of your idea, think of how much money I have saved you in the long run. So that is that KDP Rocket? That is KDP Rocket. Yep. Is the slogan there, have a rocket in your pocket? Where did I see that online? Nope, not for me. You might want to do a YouTube search. It's out there. Oh, boy. Yeah, so that's, again, one of those wonderful tools where you can actually go over and do some research and test the viability and I think it's very cool that I can plug in a book and I can see what other books estimated more or less are making, right? I could plug in a Harry Potter and see, just as an example, the estimated income that book is generating. And that gives me a really good snapshot of the competition as well. Right. We have a competition search. So just getting the keywords and understanding what I talked about is like 1/4 of what KDP Rocket can do. Mm-hmm. You can also check out all the competition by typing in things, and it will lay out not just how much they're making, but how old they are, what their review grade is, what categories they're showing up for, the whole kit and caboodle on those. And you can see their covers right there in the program. So you can make real strong judgment calls as to whether or not you can beat them. Can I get more reviews than them? Can I create a better cover than them? Mm-hmm. How well are they doing? How old is it? Man, if that book is like 3 years old and it's like selling like 40 a day, that book's doing something right. But like if it's day 3, then understand that, whoa, that book's probably doing its big old marketing push. So the numbers are skewed. See, these are all important to that judgment. Yeah. So it's also the competitive analysis angle of it is important. Very, yes. Mm-hmm. And another thing that it does too is that if you're doing AMS ads, which is where you're paying Amazon to basically put your book in front of a market, it does a wonderful job of helping you to pull keywords for those campaigns. And if you don't know what that is, AMS, I've got an absolutely full free course on it. You can just go to amscourse.com and you can learn all about it. But it does that. And finally, in February, we've got a brand new feature coming out called the Category Discoverer. I like to say it like that. Yeah. But sticking with the whole like space theme, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm an astronaut nut. You can't see my little astronaut back there, but that's my boy. What it will do is you type in like a general description of the book, or whatever you deem the book is about, like sci-fi, military, or whatever, or how to train a puppy. And KDP Rocket will go and find all of the categories that other books are using when they show up for that, and it will list them. But more importantly, it will list them from easiest to be bestseller to hardest. And what's really cool is that it will even tell you how many books that day you would have needed to sell in order to be the #1 bestseller. So just like that, you'll be able to find the easiest, most relatable categories for your book. And even better is you'll know exactly how many you would need to sell in order to get the bestseller tag, which is phenomenal. It's finally, we have a number that we can actually go towards instead of just crossing our fingers and hoping. It's
nice to have a goal.
Really, it is. Well, and again, we're talking about businesses, right? No business operates in this whole, I hope things go well. They know where the finish line is, and they keep reestablishing that finish line every time they cross it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Another thing that you're doing, you've got one of my favorite podcasts and blogs on the topic of book marketing. Give us a really quick thumbnail on those.
Sure. Well, I created the Book Marketing Show podcast, and the crazy part about it is that so I've got like kind of listening ADD. My wife would totally agree with this. And my goal was to create a podcast that is straight to the point. Each one of the episodes is on a particular book marketing tactic. And we start, the first 7 minutes is kind of going over everything you need to know about that particular tactic. And then I'll bring on a guest who is a case study. They're going to talk about how they actually did that tactic, what they saw and what they learned, and what we can learn from their mistakes, success, failure, whatever it be. And then finally, we have a recap of that, and we go over any of the notes, and we've got phenomenal show notes out there. So they usually run between 20 to 30 minutes. But again, the biggest thing for me is making sure that it's action-packed. It's stuff you can turn around and implement and see direct results.
That's one of the things I really like about it, and is the case study aspect where you really take it and go, okay, look, I've talked for 7 minutes now. Here's the real world of it. Because I think in our industry, Dave, there's so many people are blowing smoke. It's really easy to say one thing, but you've always been a guy that looked at it and picked it apart and proved it. I think that's the old submarine engineer in you. I can't picture you in a submarine. You would get bored so easily, I would think.
I'm not gonna lie. It was no fun. I was not the best of submariners either. That's for sure. Just recently we had an episode where we wanted to talk about, when should an author go KU and when should they go wide. And so in the episode, I listed off all the benefits to each, and what they do and why, when an author should think about it, when they shouldn't. And then I brought on two guests. One was super pro KU, like it saved their career, yada, yada. And the other was no way, like KU was killing my sales. And then I went wide and 60% of all my money comes wide. Yeah. The biggest thing though, was that through that episode, we were able to discover what the unifying factor was that made one successful. It wasn't that KU is better than wide or wide is better than KU. There was something special. And what it was that when an author decided to choose one or the other, they went deep into those markets and they got a competitive advantage over it. The KU person was doing, the Kindle countdowns, the deals, the freebies, and they were working the promotion sites. They were using the benefits to their optimal sales. Whereas going wide, on the other hand, the person that was really succeeding actually went into Kobo and went into iTunes and Barnes & Noble and really worked their book inside of that. They sent people there to give reviews. And because nobody else was doing that, their books rose to the top and they had a competitive advantage. So the moral of the story, by talking to both sides of the argument, we were able to discover that really the right answer is whichever one you decide to actually put effort into. Yeah. Not just throw it up there and say, that didn't work for me.
That's the old diplomat in you coming out. You're working out. I'm telling you, man, you got to get to Korea and work this thing out for us. No, I think that's funny because basically the moral of the story there is commit. Pick it, commit, and dive in deep.
Well, and more importantly, it's about competitive advantages, right? Is that person who was sending reviewers to iTunes so that they could actually build their reviews, or sending customers, I guess is the better way to say it, and was working to promote those books just a little bit. That was far and above and beyond any of her competitors.
Right.
And that brought her to the top. Yeah, yes, there's less people on iTunes, but let me tell you, there's also less work that needs to be done in order to get in front of people. So I'm not trying to push wide over, KU. My point, though, is that the successful author was the one that took advantage of the things each program offered and had a competitive advantage because of it.
Awesome. In the couple of minutes we've got left, Dave, your best advice to, let's say, new authors who, I've got my first book, it's done. What the heck am I going to do with it?
Well, I hope that you took my advice I gave earlier, which is the day you decide you want to start writing a book is the day you start marketing it. Okay. Because if you're at that point where you've written a book and you hit publish and you're like, what the heck am I going to do? You're done.
You're already behind the 8 ball at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's not a good place to be in. So please take the advice of start marketing.
If I'm a smart guy and I took your advice and I did the competitive research, the analysis, there is a market for my book, it's done. What do I do next?
Well, at that point, the big thing is to make sure that you have a launch plan. Make sure that you have an understanding of what you're going to do. If you have an email list, when are you going to use it? What point do you want to implement book promotion sites? What point do you want to start your AMS ads campaign? There's a lot of different ways to do book marketing. And I mean, that's kind of what Kindlepreneur is all about, right? Is all the different ones and which ones you want to do. But the biggest thing not to do is hit publish and hope that things work out. It just doesn't happen. Maybe back in 2013 or 12 when, KDP was pretty new, but not today. And just having that plan and implementing will give you a leg up over all the ones that are currently sitting back and hoping that their good writing will, have it work.
Yep.
Sadly, exactly. That just doesn't happen.
All right. Well, Dave, I will keep teaching them how to write and you keep teaching them how to sell what they write. And
sounds
maybe
good.
Together we'll accomplish something. Hey, what's on the horizon for you?
Well, for me, actually, this will be kind of a first mention, but Brian Meeks and I are coming up with a book reporting system. So so think like Book Report, but better, like for all markets, not just Amazon. Cool. Yeah. So we'll be coming in with that hopefully in February, but it's called Book Fido. You can find it at bookfido.com.
I like that. Anything related to dogs, I like.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to lie. Maybe these T-shirts, they're pretty cool.
I'm looking at the stuffed astronaut back. I'm in Huntsville, where Space and Rocket Center, NASA, you come down, man. I'll take you. Both my kids went to space camp and
sounds good.
Just drive south, man. I'll show you the rockets. There's no In-N-Out burger, but we have a Crystal on every corner.
Well, I definitely had enough rockets when I was in the Navy.
I can imagine.
All right, Dave.
We'll put all of the links below. If folks want to find out more about you, what's the best place for them to go?
You can go to kindlepreneur.com, and I've got an About Me page or also the Contact Me page. And we get about 150,000 visitors per month to the website. But to this day, I still respond to every one of those emails. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I get my coffee first. And then I sit down.
Dave, this has been a pleasure. You're known as one of the nicest guys out there, and you really are. And all the success you really deserve. And welcome home safe. I'm glad you're there with those cute little kids and that adorable wife of yours. You got such a cute little nuclear family, Dave.
Thank you. Like I said, it was my #1 goal to get home to him. So very glad to be here.
Well, what did they say? I was there at the conception and the birth.
Yeah.
So we're glad you're
pretty
home.
Much.
All right, Dave. Talk to you soon, man.
All right. Take care.